What's up, guys? This is CJ and Erin Finley with another episode of Honest Conversations. Today, the topic that we're going to be talking about hits close to home with us and probably a lot of other people out there right now during this pandemic: health, wellness, and fitness. And one of the things we want to discuss today is how toxic fitness and exercise can be for a lot of people, and how we kind of have a different view, or we believe we have a little bit of a different view than a lot of other people out there when it comes to health and wellness and how we implement it into our lives. So without further adu, I'd love to ask you, how is your...
You're doing this like a podcast.
I mean, hey, maybe...
So
you told me to kick it off, so...
Okay. So we tried to do this. We had this conversation like a couple weeks ago, and it was going great. We were on a roll, and I just feel like I had so many like golden nugget fire takeaways, and then we realized that it did not save, it wasn't recording, or our mics weren't on or something.
I think your mic died, yeah.
So I'm gonna try to remember what we talked about, but it wasn't necessarily that fitness is toxic or that like health and wellness is toxic. My idea with the whole conversation was just that there's a lot of misconceptions out there for people that may be trying to start a health and wellness journey or health and fitness, whatever you want to call it, to get healthier and more fit. I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there. There's also a ton of information out there.
And those misconceptions are toxic.
Sometimes. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of information out there. It can be very overwhelming, and I think that just following a subset of ideals and people can be toxic, or that can lead to problems if you're not super open-minded with your approach and just really focused on what's best for you. So I think that's where this kind of evolved, because both of us have been on this journey for a long time, but it's looked different over the past 10 years. I mean, you were a college athlete, I was a dancer, and then that carried into the types of workouts we do today. But even today, I think we both try to maintain a fit lifestyle without putting hours and hours in each week. Most of the time, like, quarantine's a little different, especially lately, because I've had a little extra time that I haven't had to spend commuting, or basically just commuting an hour each day, that I could walk outside a little bit more. But most of the time I work out only like half an hour on average.
Okay, you're starting to ramble.
6 days
so
a
I'm
week.
gonna cut her off real quick. How did you first get introduced into, like, when you think of health and wellness?
Yep.
And
I thought we were
how
talking about like our misconceptions.
Yes,
Sorry,
but like,
making me feel bad.
The misconceptions come from like where we started, because you talk about toxicity, and I don't know why you always have a habit of doing this, but instead of like actually just going with it, you combat me and say that's not what it's about. But it is. Like, your journey with health and wellness started off with a stomach disorder. Like, you had toxic issues of working out due to some reason that a lot of probably other women have the same issue. So that's where I kind of wanted to start, and that's why I said toxic misconceptions. So for a lot of people out there, describe like how your journey actually started, because a lot of people see you here today where you're super fit and you exercise and you run and you do all these things, but it didn't always start that way.
But I guess what I was going into
run.
was the misconception that in order to be fit, you have to do X things, because I don't do the same thing all the time, and I don't work out that much, really. So that's where I was going with that, and I wanted to go into like how you can evolve to get to that. But if you're asking me where this all started, I'd say my background was in dance. All through grade school to high school to college, I was dancing. And that's all I knew. My dad was really into physical fitness and all kinds of different styles of workouts, and so I kind of grew up with that, and he was very athletic, even to the day he passed away. He passed away in an exercise class, unfortunately. But that's just a testament to what I grew up around and what I was raised to see. And so I always kind of had an interest, but as growing up as a dancer, I didn't really know what to do once dance stopped for me. So I started getting into running in college. A lot of my friends were running, and that's kind of where my passion for running developed. But to your point of this like kind of toxic idea of what working out was, for me it was just a lot of thinking that I had to keep up with that. I had to, if I wanted to be a runner, then I had to run every single day, or I had to run so many miles per week because that's what runners do. And I didn't have the open mind that I have today, which is that, you know, my lifestyle and my schedule and what I'm studying might be totally different than somebody who's like actually a runner for their profession. And so I don't need to like do that kind of workout and stuff. And so I started to develop sort of unhealthy mindset and behavior around like just exercise addiction in general, I think.
Like, weren't you waking up like crazy early just to get your run and your workout in?
So there's a lot of different factors that played into it. A lot of it was I was really sick at the time, trying to understand what was happening with my gut and my stomach health and my GI issues, and exercise, and I think you can relate to this, exercise was really the only thing that took the pain away from me. So it was more of something I discovered as like a remedy to what I was feeling, but it wasn't a great remedy because it was a double-edged sword, because the more I worked out, the more weight I was going to lose because I wasn't eating the right things and I couldn't figure out what to eat. So that whole journey was raveled up in so many different factors that were just kind of creating compound effects of negative health impacts on me. So it wasn't until probably the end of college when I started to venture into different styles of workouts. I got certified to teach group exercise at that point, and just opened my eyes to different workout styles. I was doing a lot of Pilates and a lot of strength training, still running, but it wasn't just running, and I was definitely more open-minded to balancing it and switching it up for optimal fitness. And so that's kind of the approach that I've taken up until now, which is that I strive to be overall pretty fit, but I like to be able to do a lot of different things. And so at times I will be training for something, but I don't like to, like right now, I'll run a couple times a week. I'm not training for any particular race. Some weeks I don't run at all because I like to be able to do a mix of things. So I think the key is finding what you really enjoy and just always being mindful of sort of the hold that those kind of behaviors can have of your life, especially when you find that it's really paying off in some ways and you're feeling so much better mentally because you've been working out, and just recognizing when it becomes sort of an addiction that leads into other areas in a not so positive way. So is that answering your question?
Yeah.
Kind of rambly.
Yeah, we got to work on that. But so, I mean, yeah, a lot of the problems that you struggle with, I think a lot of people struggle with, which is one, not knowing where to start. So what they do is typically people will start with what is like being thrown at them, because I read this quote the other day that like essentially said that those who don't know speak the loudest, and then those who know a lot about the world and are wise tend to question more things and like don't actually put themselves out there as much. And in terms of fitness, if you go on social media and everything nowadays, you'll see so many different people throwing different solutions at you without kind of trying to understand what you're actually struggling with in the first place. And that's where I think a lot of people fall into the problem of finding solutions that look great on the outside, like they're externally motivated, but on the inside, it's not necessarily what they need. And to give a good example of that, it's just like, for me, right? Like I was a smaller kid. I wanted to put on weight and get bigger, right? So I lifted heavy all the time. But what I didn't realize was like lifting heavy actually makes you less flexible. And less flexible meant that I couldn't that I didn't know, but when I got on the soccer field, like I would tear muscles. I tore my hamstring, and I would have ankle problems and Achilles problems and quad problems and groin issues and glute. And now today, like I'm reversing a lot of those problems because I thought the solution was stack a bunch of weight on there, because I see all these guys putting weight on the bench press and then chugging protein shakes.
So at what point did you realize that approach wasn't best for you? Or like when did you decide that
too late, honestly. Honestly, like for social media is a double-edged sword. Like there was none back then, so I couldn't really see what else was out there. So you just go with what's, again, put in your face. You go to the school gym when you're an athlete, and like there's only one way to do things: put a lot of weight on and do as much as you can and sweat your ass off. And that necessarily wasn't the best for me. I was already kind of fit in the first place. I should have been working on recovery and flexibility and mobility. And those are the things that I look to today. And that started probably 4 to 5 years ago when I moved away from the East Coast, and I was in a gym alone. And once I was in the gym alone, I had to realize, like, why am I doing what I'm doing?
Yeah,
like
I
couldn't have the pressure of everybody else. Like, yo, let's go lift or let's go do this. It was like, what do I want to do and what feels right? And that's really when I started going into what does CJ need, and not like what is this external validation that I used to seek.
I think the problem I had, which I still feel at times creep in, and I'm positive I've gotten messages about this from multiple people that follow my journey on Instagram, that they're struggling with this, is like once you start something and you feel like it's bringing you positive benefits, you're really scared to try anything else. And you're scared you're gonna lose progress, and you're scared that that's the only way, and if that worked for you, then that's what you have to do. And it's just really hard to take a risk and try something different. But it's really just about like having an open mind and being like, what are you afraid of? Like, you're not gonna lose progress. You actually have to think in terms of, this is probably better for you. And I remember I had the switch flipped probably about like 4 years ago. It was right before we were ready to move again out of Houston and into another city. And I was thinking, like, I was doing a lot of high intensity interval training. One, because I was saving me time, but two, because I was like, oh, this is like the thing right now, and this is what I have to do. You just gotta get sweaty all the time. And if I didn't sweat, I was like, I didn't have a good workout. And it was like I had to burn out, basically, and that was what a good workout was for me. I would even run sometimes before those workouts.
But I think, especially for us, my advice would be for people to hang around people that are kind of the opposite of them and learn new tools to like add to their toolkit. Because like when I came to you, my style of working out is like the complete opposite. Like, I wouldn't raise my heart rate, and it would be like,
I'd say,
let me finish.
Okay.
I wouldn't raise my heart rate and be all about strength training, and you would literally question, like, are you even working out hard, right? Mm-hmm. And then I would question you, like, you're working out way too hard. You need to be focusing on recovery and in between sets. And for me, like, I never did group fitness and stuff like that, so I never really knew mobility and like bar class and Pilates and all these things that I've tried now, which I'm like, damn, that's really hard for me. Strength training is not hard for me. So I need to do these other things to add more tools to my tool belt, and it's going to holistically make me a more well-rounded individual. And I think that's where my view on, you mentioned progress. I went from like progress of like, you have to define what does progress look like, because mine was always like, I want to be strong. So then I had to define like, what does strong actually mean? It doesn't mean I can bench 4 plates for reps necessarily. It means that if I go on a run, I don't want to get injured. If I work out in whatever capacity, I feel great and I feel fine. I'm not in pain. And that's where, instead of like going for the strength and the numbers and the aesthetic pleasing, it was more so internal, like, I don't want to be in pain. I want to feel good when I work out, and then I can start progressing in other ways. And then I think for you, having me
Yeah, definitely.
showcase, hey, maybe you should slow down and tweak some of the things you're doing. And then for me, maybe I should try some of the things, those weird things that I thought you were doing, they actually really work. So I think that's where for other people, surrounding yourselves with people that aren't in the same little thing, and then you can have a more worldly view of that. I think that is super important.
I think even a step further than that is like be your own outside perspective every now and then. Like take a step outside of what you're doing and just reflect and be like, is this the best thing for me right now? Do I really need to work 10-hour days and then come home and do 5 miles on a treadmill, or do I really need to like do this really intense HIIT workout? Like what is the point? I could just do something for movement and exercise that's going to make me feel good. But doing a strenuous thing after a strenuous day and then putting the pressure on myself to perform at some level in those workouts, like that was when I had the turning point that was like, what is the point of all this? And so now my approach, very much influenced by, you know, being with you all the time, is just focusing a lot more on long term. So all about longevity, preventing injury, and just being as mobile and...
But I think like, especially for us, and check the time, pull it out here so that we make sure we're on track. But for me and you personally, like you had already mentioned that your father passed away in a spin class, and then like my dad, as he's aged, has had issues, and so has my mom. So seeing that as I got older, like I never thought about that when you're in your early 20s. You're not thinking like, man, what is life going to be when I'm 40, 50, 60 years old? And I started, as you get in your mid 20s and now I'm approaching 30, like it starts transitioning of like, okay, how do the next 30 years look like for me? And you see the difference in paths based on the choices of 60-year-olds right now. You have some 60-year-olds who look great, feel great, can run, do, and then you have these other subset who are like chronic illness, immobile. It's like, who do you want to be? And what do you have to do to get there? And that's where I don't really care about being the strongest or the fastest or whatever. I want to feel the best. I want to be happy. I want to be emotionally available to the world because I'm not stuck in pain. And I think a lot of people, especially in your early 20s, mid 20s, aren't thinking about that. They're thinking of like, how do I do whatever it takes so that I can post on Instagram to flex the certain way.
I think
where it's so much more than that, and that's going to bite them in the ass in the long run because they're cutting corners.
This reminds me, you reminded me of a couple things. The key point here is that you can't compare who you are now to who you were 10 years ago and expect yourself to perform at those levels. Like, sure, you actually might have gotten healthier and more fit over the years. That may be the case, great. But if you're trying to do what you did in college, or like try to do some of those drills and like are hard on yourself because you're not hitting the times that you hit back then, like you really gotta take a step back and be like, as you age, like you have to evolve what you're doing and always keep in mind that that's gonna change. And it's really hits home with me because I wish I could have had a conversation with my father about that. I mean, he was someone who was in his 50s trying to perform like he was a college athlete, and I really think that amount of stress has a huge impact on the insides of your body and the stress that contributes to death in some cases. And so I really, if there's one message that I'd spread, it's like, use exercise as a positive influence on your life, not as something that contributes negatively, because it can. If you put a lot of pressure on yourself, you constantly do strenuous workouts and you're not incorporating enough balance and recovery, it can definitely turn from a positive thing to a negative thing.
But you mentioned a really key piece here, and I think one of the biggest misconceptions is working out harder is what gets people to that their whatever benchmark they put as progress. And it's more so longevity, like the long-term mindset. If you're consistent over time, whatever goal you set in your head, you're gonna get there. But the reason you're gonna get there is because if you're consistent with your goals, you're gonna put in that plan, okay, I'm gonna go get a massage. I'm gonna go meditate. Because that's part of the entirety. It's not just this one track mind. And that's where like people get so short-sighted on what they want to accomplish. And they forget that like recovery is part of growth of your, like for me, for instance, right? Like I'm stronger than I was when I used to pick up a lot of weights. Like I don't lift that many weights now, but I'm actually stronger now because I focus on the recovery of my muscles and how my muscles feel and sleep and like relaxation and meditation and stress relief. Like when I wasn't doing that, I was all wound up so tight and my muscles weren't optimal. And then I would beat myself up in my head of like, oh man, this was a shitty workout. So then what I do is use more pre-workout to try and get in a better mood rather than being like, you know what, like let's take the day off and foam roll and relax and then tomorrow come back and just chip away at this block.
I think the biggest misconception that was missing back when we started our fitness journeys that is now a little bit more prevalent now as a known fact is that there's more than just your effort that contributes to your performance and your output. It's not, if you had, say I go for a run and I don't hit the time I want, it's not just because I wasn't running hard enough. It could be I didn't have enough sleep, I didn't eat it the right
your hormones.
things. Could have been my hormones, it could have been my stress from the day, it could have been I didn't have enough water that day or maybe a couple days before. And there's just so many other factors that go into, or maybe I wasn't giving myself enough rest. Maybe I ran too many times that week. And so now I'm really mindful about the whole equation. And that's what I like to say to everyone. It's less about do all these classes, double up, do all these workouts per week, like go hard. Like, no, I really think that the more you take an approach that's best for you and your life and you put all those other factors into play, that's when it all plays the best positive role.
Yeah, I think like what you're bringing up there is like when I think of misconceptions, especially in this space, a lot of people lean more so into, like, I hate to keep hitting back on this, but overworking and overdoing things to get their goals, but they're not taking a step back and
like hustle is not
and
just
really
hours and hours and
yeah, and it's more so like if you look at, like, I just think of it like this, a blank canvas on a painting, right? If you judge me off the first stroke, you'd be like, that looks terrible, right? Even the second stroke and the third stroke and the fourth stroke. And I think a lot of people have a habit, especially when they're first getting in. Like when you first start something, you're not gonna be good at it. When you first are trying to lose weight, you're not gonna lose weight. You're gonna get better at the exercise, right? And then when you get better at the exercise, you're gonna be able to do it longer, faster, which then causes you to lose weight. And what people try to do is they judge themselves on that one little instance and one little sliver of, did they work hard or did they not? And what happens is they're like, I worked really hard today, but I didn't have my results. And then they defeat themselves rather than taking the average of a 3-month span. And like, I mean, you've seen me tracking my statistics on, I have a biometric reader, and I did an entire month. And I did half of it, I took the reading in the morning, and half of it the reading at night, so I can come up with an average. Now the average is really what's gonna showcase my month. I don't even look at, like, one day, if it's off or whatever, I don't even make a judgment on myself. And I think that's one of the worst misconceptions people have is like, I mean, I remember I used to try and PR and do these different things, and it's just like,
it's just our worst enemy.
like data, and you can't use one little sliver of a huge pie, and that's what I used to do. I used to literally every week I would live day by day rather than being like, who do I want to be at 25 and then 30 and then 35, and like, where does running and cardio and all these things play into it? Because like, I hate to run, and you've been asking me recently, like, why are you running more? And I'm like, well, even though I hate it, I know that it's something that I need to utilize as a tool because I'm not getting younger. Like I don't play soccer anymore, so I need some type of cardio. Whereas I used to not have to run because I would just go on the soccer field. Versus now it's like, okay, like I need to get my heart rate up a little bit and utilize this tool. And that's because I'm looking at the long run. But when I run, I'm not like looking down at my watch and being like, that was great or that was terrible. It's like, did I run 10 times out of a month? And if I did that, cool, that was great.
I mean, one thing quarantine has done for me positively is allowed me to just take time to walk a little bit more and drop some of the hardcore running that I tend to get in the habit of doing. And that's something I've mentally noticed in myself too, is like once I start running more frequently, I'm like, ooh, I want to keep this up. Like I want to keep getting better. And I have to always remind myself like, all right, chill, you already ran like 3 times this week. You don't need to run again. Because I think, sure, I have goals I want to hit, but I'd also rather be able to run for a long time, many years to come. And I'm not trying to go to the Olympics right now. So really running is super fast multiple times per week and being sore and risking injury and just putting extra stress on my body is something I ask myself, do you really need to do that? Or maybe a walk where you can listen to something a little bit more, interesting right now, or just take the time to slow down and not always be in a rush or trying to do.
I think you have to look at like,
something.
Because we only have like 2 minutes here. You have to look at what is it getting you at any point.
What's the benefit?
That's another, I think, misconception and toxic misconception that people have is I'm gonna lose this weight and I'm gonna be happy. Or I'm gonna gain this weight and I'm gonna be happy, or I'm gonna hit this mark and then I'm gonna be happy, and then you get it and for like a day you're like, man, this is awesome, and then the next day comes and you're like, now what? And that's where really the longevity, and I think to wrap this up,
we
like
hit
that's
on this a lot in Girls with Goals, the community of women that we lead this virtual call, and something that a lot of the trainers now, life coaches have mentioned is that they've noticed in the fitness space that you can get someone to achieve all the goals in the world, and if they're not happy on the inside, they're not going to be happy. So it's really about using fitness as a tool and just as something positive for your life, but not relying on it to bring you some source of happiness and satisfaction. And the last point I would like to make is just that when you look at people on different journeys and doing different things to stay active and fit and healthy, don't compare. I think that's probably, social media is great because it provides us with a lot of information, a lot of resources, and a lot of motivation. But it can also be really bad if you're constantly looking at what someone else is doing and thinking that that's the path for you, or that's the only way, or why do they look that way or achieve that. And you just have to remember that it is just social media, and everyone's life is different. Everyone has different times that they can allot to working out, and so that's why I always try to be transparent about like the time that I put in, and so in case it relates to anyone that
you can't,
doesn't have a lot.
in some, like you can't compare your day 1 with somebody else's day 10,000.
That too.
And literally that's just all it comes down to, and your life to somebody else's. So I would love to get into, I had another misconception to get into, but unfortunately this thing only goes to 30 minutes. So we got to wrap up. And
seconds.
We can talk about it another time, but thank you guys for listening. This is The Honest Conversations with Erin and CJ Finley.
Happy
Until next
Memorial
time.
Day.
Happy Memorial Day.
All right.